New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello. Well, welcome to Rockin the Love. Oh, that's Henry.
Henry says hello. I'm Gil.
And I'm Robyn.
And that was Henry. Welcome, everybody. Ready for a big Wednesday afternoon. We're hanging out here in Albuquerque today in our home. And we're ready for a little bit of interaction with the folks online.
So if you're online, say hello. Let us know where you're calling from. And we're typing from, whatever it is we do nowadays. We're going to be talking about what we do because our topic today is communication. And communication is key. And one of the things I've noticed in my thought process around that is how many ways there are to communicate. So do it in your best form. Oh, there's one of our number one communicators, John. Hello, John. Thank you for coming. And I'm glad I have shoulders that you can cry on. So welcome, bienvenidos. We're excited to be talking to you today. And like us if you're there. Like us on social media. Like that little dot up at the top of your screen, that little heart thing. All of it helps. So anyway, communication we'll get to after our commercial, but let's talk about this week, the second week in 2025.
Oh, what a crazy week it's been, no?
Yeah, but do you feel like it ever isn't crazy?
No.
I mean, on some level, it's like, I feel like we spend our time being so astonished at how crazy it is. Like, oh, this is crazy, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm keep being amazed at the kind of information or communication that happens from what some would consider political leaders. It's just amazing. It's just fascinating what people say. So I've been really noting that this week.
Well, I find that really interesting in conjunction with, we've been watching the TV show The Diplomat. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but it's like, some notches up from, what was that other one?
You were talking about West Wing?
West Wing and, Madam Secretary and all of those things. It's like, oh, as we progress and more stuff unfolds in our news, then we get more dirt and stuff from behind the scenes. Also, the other one, what was the one with Robyn?
Scandal.
Oh, Scandal. No, that's a whole other one. But the one with
yeah.
Robyn and Kevin.
Yeah, I don't remember. I
I'm on a first name basis with him. I can't think.
Maybe our producer knows.
Yeah, Kevin
Spacey.
And Robyn
Wright.
Robyn Wright Penn.
Yes, I mean, I think the interesting part, when you mentioned the show, is just how much sanity the people behind the scenes are trying to maintain, and hold their leaders into, because the leaders are nuts, kind of. It's like everybody's trying to keep things moving and somehow convince the leaders that that's what they need to do, because if they don't do that, they understand what's really going to happen, in the world.
I know what you're saying, but and we put them there.
Well, yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? So it's like in the whole, there's only one of us here and everything's an outpicturing of us mode. Like, what is it that I need to learn? What is it that we need to learn from all of this? And who is this we that we speak of? Yeah. I mean, no, really. I mean, like the stuff going on, is crazy. We're still in the midst of fires in Los Angeles and sending much love and prayers and blessings there. But even just that, like the fact that it could take the actual act of the fire can be put secondary to all the hatred and stuff that's being spewed.
Right.
I don't know if any of you New Thought listeners had an opportunity to listen to Fireside Chat on New Thought Media on Friday night, but our producer's show, Michael Mangus, he explored some of those the craziness and the topics, and there's just so much that, like, I really go into pause, like when somebody starts to talk about, oh yeah, Facebook's not going to fact check anymore. What? Like, it's like how I feel like that game where the skier's going up the mountain, going to the mountain, and then all of a sudden it's like, pew! Like, how does that happen? How does that happen with the knowledge we have, and we have new equipment, new boots, and we're all ready to get to the top of the mountain, and then in a flash.
Then we just take it all off. Oh, we don't need this stuff. We don't need anybody to be concerned about hate speech. I mean, just let it go out there. Let the people decide. And at some level, I get that. Yes, there's a level at which we all have to take responsibility and decide. But also, as a group, there's some level of decision making to be made, where we say this is okay and this really isn't.
Well, and didn't we decide that?
Oh,
isn't that what the last 50 years have been about? Deciding that it's not okay to discriminate in this way, and it's not okay to say this and to call that, and to, there and in the alternate. Well, I have to be careful how I say that. But I mean, and they're taking down. We can't even. We don't say Columbus Day anymore, so why is that okay and this isn't okay, or this okay and that isn't okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah, in other words, it's not consistent.
It's not consistent, and it's not.
Well, believe me, if they could change Columbus Day back to Columbus Day, those who are doing it would do it. So that's sort of a moot point.
Give it a few minutes.
And I'm guessing that there's probably a few artists out there who are already developing new Civil War monuments to go up. I mean, it's insane. It's the same thing, here in New Mexico. Let's celebrate when the Spanish massacred entire towns of indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what?
Right.
And when somebody says something about it, that's one thing, and it starts to go. But the way things are now, it's not unlikely somebody going, oh, that, we just do that. Why would you say that's wrong?
Right.
So,
yeah, and John's absolutely right that it's an essential truth. Its essential truth is discerned personally and collectively, and to abandon it at corporate levels is reckless and unfortunate.
Yeah.
And reckless and unfortunate is quite kind, John. That's quite a kind way of saying.
No, we can't say what the kind thing is. No, but yes,
I know. I could hear my producer going, "Don't do it," but that's why I didn't.
Those are the issues. So that's what's happening in the news, in my estimation, this week. It's just so much stuff is coming up that is really off the rails.
It is off the rails.
It's really it's not with thought. it's not from any place of compassion. It's not from, I mean, whew.
And I think, I shared with Gil the other day that I've really done my best to stay out of the news, to stay out of any kind of negative talk about the incoming regime or any of that. I've just been in my own silo with, my truth. And I said, I started to listen a little bit more to late night and to, late night hosts and their thing and hear the things and see the news clip. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I realized, like, on some level, I've been in denial because I'm thinking, it's so quiet. He's been so quiet, and maybe things will be different. And then I start to listen to the news and I'm like, oh my God, I've lost my mind. It's an interesting balance to stay in the truth and the not truth.
Well, and what the truth is that all of this is bigger than we think. And spirit is bigger than all of this. And that's the truth. But boy, standing in it and listening to it and watching it, sometimes we have to just really keep anchoring back down to, I know my job is to be that compassion in the world and be that love in the world, so that spirit is still recognizable.
And that is the mandate for the upcoming weeks. It's true. It's true. I mean, it's like, and we're back. Because if we get caught up in the appearances, where do you go? Where do you go? And I'm not saying be in woo-woo land or in denial that it's not happening, but, we are the love and we have to anchor it. We have to. So, and the way that we do that is by supplying the good news.
Absolutely.
So it's time for the good news.
So, are you going to go first again this week?
No.
All right. Well, we have all heard, and we've been a part of the news cycle, and we know about the big fires in California, one of them being the Eaton Canyon fire near Altadena. And I found something that I thought was just really heartwarming and also scary. And that is that this 24-year-old guy who has studied climate change and has degrees, etc. He actually predicted a week before and that this was going to happen, and told people to have their stuff packed, have their cars packed, and be ready to go. And when it first started, he notified on Facebook, get out, an hour at least before anyone else officially said anything from anywhere. And many people cite him as the reason why they got their pets out, why they're alive, why, whatever the deal is, because they had the extra time. And he based it all on, understanding, this particular canyon, the angle that it sits at, and the way the Santa Ana winds come, and the kind of storm that was coming, and all the pieces, and put it together. It's all, it's all science. You can put it all together and you can see what's happening. And he knew if there was any kind of spark, it would be over, and he let people know that. And I just think it's fascinating. The downside of it is, where the heck are the official people that are supposed to be doing this? And B, how wonderful that somebody took the time and was willing to stick his neck out to let people know. He put out, don't wait, pack your car, photo albums, medication, birth certificate, social security cards, anything you can't live without, put it in your car. This is imminent. Do not wait for an official evacuation. Get out. I mean, that's pretty you know, and yeah, he told the internet that was going to happen a week and a half ago, a week and a half prior to it. He had already predicted, based on what he could see in the weather patterns, that this was a possibility. So anyway,
It's fascinating. I've heard a couple of things like that, actually, but that is interesting. And I think, I mean, that is a great thing to also bring into our conversation today on communication. You know, when do we listen? When do we hear? Whatever.
right.
But anyway,
And when do we risk our reputations by putting things out, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. So the good news is many people listened. Many people.
And many people got out.
Yeah.
When they may have missed their opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. That's great. And that he was willing to put himself on the line, because had it not happened, people would just be like, he was crazy.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. We don't need to dissect the good news. It's just good. So mine is about 9 out of every 10 cars sold in Norway last year was electric.
Oh, they can't do that. That doesn't work.
Well,
It's too hard.
What's fascinating is that Norway is actually has the most, the high, well, I'll get to that. I'll get to what's fascinating. Norway is on the they made a vow in 2017 to phase out fossil fuels, and so the recent market data supports that the goal is now well within reach for their country of 5.5 million. And so the Norway is giving, they not only give tax incentives, but they give things like free parking and all kinds of things to help people adjust to the changing of the networks that they use. And so it says that despite the cold temperature regularly in Norway, which I know
Right.
you were on, regular draining their batteries, consumers speak with the BBC and said the range and charging weren't major struggles given a simple change of mindset, which means from charging your car when you need it to charging when you can. So making sure that, you know,
Instead of waiting till your tank is down to zero and then going to the gas station, if you're at the store and they have a charging thing, you plug in while you're inside.
right.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah, and they also said there's no reason that this model, the Norwegian model, can't be adapted by other countries and really get everyone in that green mindset. Producer, make a note that the next thing I need to put in the training manual, turn your phone off before the show airs.
I didn't realize I still had it. The kid had it a minute ago.
Blame it on the kid.
Always.
Anyway, so yeah, so they've gone, their best-selling model is a Tesla, followed by VWs and Toyotas, and then they have, you know, all the other models. But that's what they're working with there. And a third of all their registered cars on the road are electric. Isn't that good?
Well, yeah, that's pretty good.
And it says, and compared to just gasoline-powered cars, the split is close, because that also includes diesel. The split also includes 50-50.
So 50-50 between gasoline and electric, and then they have diesel as the other third. Wow.
And what I was going to say earlier was about the gas thing, because you're like, oh, they can't do that. Norway has more proven gas and petroleum reserves than any other European nation. So it's not like that's their concern, right? Like, what are we going to do if we're not doing this with all of our gas? It's like, clearly they have made a commitment and a choice to...
That it's time to stop exploiting that.
Yeah.
Or at least to slow it down.
Yeah.
That's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah.
90% of all their vehicles sold last year were electric. It's
Yeah.
pretty darn good. What
Yep.
are we at? About 9%? Not even.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. I always feel warm in the heart when like the whole country is really making a conscious choice to move things in the right direction. So that's our good news. That's our good news. And John says this show is a bright light of clarity, wisdom, and compassion that is vital in these times.
And thank you, John, for bringing it. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and we couldn't do it without all of you. So thank you. So when we come back, we're going to continue with communication, effective communication, what makes communication good, clear communication, all those good things. But communication is key. And we're going to talk about that right after a break. So come back here to the New Thought Media Network, and we'll see you then.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, we are back here on Rockin the Love. I am Robyn.
And I'm Gil, and welcome. Welcome to this Wednesday afternoon in January 2025.
And I just want to say to start, my hair looked so good until I got on camera. It was all curly and great. And now I'm like, oh, I want to put my baseball hat on. Anyway, so I just want to acknowledge that if you're thinking why is her hair so weird? I already know. Okay, go ahead.
Excellent. Excellent. And if you're thinking, why is my hair so beautiful? Call me for tips later. We wanted to talk about communication because, we say that communication is key to everything in relationship. And I think that's really true because communication happens everywhere. And I think we don't realize how much we are interacting with others, even when we're not talking to them.
Well, especially when we're not talking to them.
Yeah, how much is going on in those spaces. And so I thought we'd talk a little bit about what are the different forms of communication and what forms do we gravitate towards and what pieces do we realize and what pieces do we miss and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So there's basically 4 types of communication, right?
Unless you talk to the people that I found, and then there's 5. So there's verbal, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nonverbal. There's written. There's listening. And then there's visual communication. And I think the one probably that wasn't included in yours was listening. And listening is a interesting one because it reminds us that unless we're actually hearing what other people are saying, then the communication isn't happening. One of the ways we communicate is to really understand what somebody says so that we can respond in ways that are of value. So that's kind of an interesting one. So we're all pretty familiar with verbal communication.
Yes.
Yeah. What can go wrong in verbal communication?
Hold on a second, I'll show you. Robert. Just kidding. That's our teenager. Well, what can go wrong? Well, the same thing that can go wrong with any of them. I mean, it's misunderstood. It's like we're constantly all translators. It's not that we really, even if we speak the languages fluently, we're always translating, well, what does that mean? And the way they said it with what emphasis was that and all of that. So obviously misinterpretation is the short version of my.
Well, what that made me think of was the game we play with kids and you play with people and you have somebody interpret and somebody else speaks as if they're speaking another language and then the other person says what they said.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hilarious, right? And at some level, that's what we do all the time.
But it's hilarious. The funnier it is because it's more accurate. So really, when somebody goes, if somebody else goes, if you don't do that, I'm going to kill you. You go, that makes you laugh because you're like, oh my God, that really, you believe it. So mm-hmm. there's a transmission through the energy of it,
right?
That was, relatively accurate, at least to the, what they were trying to say. Whereas when somebody does that and then somebody goes, interprets it as, I really would like a ham sandwich. It's not as funny or as meaningful, or sometimes it's funnier, but it's that balance. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. And what you're hitting on is this idea that how much, even in the midst of verbal communication, what else is happening? All the other communication, like I said, the energy of it, the feel of it, the emphasis of it, all that stuff is happening at the same time. The body language, it's all happening while it's being spoken, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that's happening, and I guess why is that important? It's important because when you say certain things, they really piss me off because I think you mean something you don't mean. Or at least I think you actually mean it, and you think you don't.
and is that true? I mean, is that the truth? Is it that you think I mean it, or is it that through your filter you're hearing some other conversation?
Well, that's the other side of it. I mean, that in fact, yes. It's now filtered from you to me. And so whatever I place on top of whatever you've done or said, now I'm not only thinking you meant something, but I'm thinking that because of my own interpretation. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you guys following along? Or are we just
Should we send out notes?
Yeah, but I was thinking because it's like we're given excuse me, we're given this roadmap, if you will. And it's like someone says, here's a roadmap to to Disneyland. It's going to be the best time. You're going to have a great time. It's going to be amazing. And you take the map and you go and you get there and it's raining and half the rides are closed and it's too expensive and the characters aren't out. And so you're having a different experience than someone else had. So we come into a situation, whether it's a relationship or a job, a romantic relationship, I should say, or a job, or any of those things, with this expectation, and then we expect it to be the way we've heard it will be, or the way someone else said it would be, or the way that we dreamed that it could be, when everybody's coming in with a different piece of the puzzle.
So when somebody comes in and says, this is going to be great, you go, yeah, right. And they're lying almost. The interpretation is that's not true. So they're trying to tell me a story and, it becomes a thing of, I don't believe it or whatever. And suddenly what person was trying to communicate is not what gets heard at all. They're excited. They think there's great stuff happening here. The other person's like, no, it's not.
Well, yeah, because not only that, but we, it's like I've said in workshops before, it's like we come into a marriage or a relationship with our own set of luggage, right? And we pack in there, all the things we've heard and we've learned growing up, right? So I'm bringing in my insecurity around my cooking or my this or my that. And when you respond to me from your perspective of whatever, it can clash.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when communication really becomes important, and that's the verbal piece, to inquire and to keep asking until you understand where each other's at.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we misunderstand each other?
I have trouble with that kind of math.
Okay, good answer. No, but it's challenging because, like you said, we come at it from a different perspective. Like, if you've had a great day and you come home and I have had a crappy day, we're in different places. And so
yeah, and I come in and go, hey, you wanna run down to the store and get such and such? You're like, no.
Right.
And I think, oh, she doesn't like me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
She's not happy to see me, or whatever that thing is. And technically, some level you kind of communicate that, but what you were really communicating was, no, I don't want to go. I'm not in the mood. I'm not happy. I'm not, you're really trying to tell me I'm not happy. I don't feel that great. Right. And so it's that kind of a thing. And so how do we look to understand one another better? So we have the verbal communication, and sometimes we always have to look at what else is being communicated.
Well, and that's an important point, because at any given time, there's more being communicated than just the facts.
Mm-hmm.
There's our feelings about something. There's our thoughts. There's all of those things.
And those things are all being communicated through more than just the words.
Right.
Right.
And especially when you've been in a long-term relationship, then you think you think you've got the decoder. So if somebody says something, that isn't necessarily like laden with, I hate broccoli, that kind of feeling. And they say, oh, broccoli's fine, let's have broccoli. The other person goes, I know you're just saying that because blah, blah, blah. You don't really mean that. When in reality, there are times when someone has just resigned to, let's just try broccoli again. I mean, it's that kind of thing. It's very nuanced. This relationship thing is no joke, folks.
And anywhere, and I think at some level, all of this even applies to when we're communicating with ourselves, because we shut off things that we don't want to hear from ourselves. We ignore the nonverbal communication that our body's giving us, like we're not feeling well or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff happening, and we don't always pay attention, or we avoid paying attention. And I think that's true in communication with other people. When you have somebody at a job who's hasn't been the best performer, and they've been reprimanded, and they've been told this and they've been told that, and then they get fired, and they're like, that came out of nowhere.
Mm.
Well, not really.
John says the river of denial.
The river of denial. Let's go for a swim. I think that's, although there's probably alligators and crocodiles in that one. But so anyway, I think it's important to realize that this stuff crosses all kinds of lines. So what kind of nonverbal communication?
Well, hold on. I'm still on denial.
You're still on denial? Okay.
But hold that thought. Hold that question, because I also think, especially in the work that we are constantly doing in New Thought and in spiritual growth and things like that, that we can be very hard on ourselves.
Mm.
And is it denial? Like, is it denial, or is it, and maybe it is. And I think sometimes it is. I definitely think sometimes it is. But I also think there's other components, and I think this is where our work comes in, because sometimes we might just be stuck in our story, which may ultimately be denial. However, it's still a different process, because if you're really believing, where you're at, or if you're, you're just attached to that because that's how you've survived your whole life. So I just think it's important to be aware of all the different components and not just be in denial. Like, I know there's many times in relationships when people beat themselves up and go, what's wrong with me? Why did I stay this long? Why did I do it like this? Why didn't I see that they were blah, 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 And, that, I don't know. For me, the why is like, I don't know. Or maybe there's times when I go, oh, because it taught me blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I don't want to get stuck. I don't want anybody to beat themselves up for where they are in the journey. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think at some level that brings up the piece about communication. Communication only happens to the point at which we're ready to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things that goes on. And in this moment, I just want to take a second and recognize Tim, who's out there. Thank you for joining us. We are always interested in hearing what people think and what's going on. So feel free to offer any thoughts you have. Go ahead.
I just want to share this quote along with that. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place.
Yes, we think we said that.
We think
I'm
we
not
said
actually
that.
I'm not actually guilty of that, but you seem to think I'm guilty of that. So I don't understand how that works exactly, but yeah, where it is crystal clear, except the one who was communicated to has no idea. Right? So, we leave parts out. We think we say stuff we don't because we thought about it. We, we say it cryptically because of whatever. And so, a lot of it, we have to examine what's coming out of us, what's showing up for us. And that's the thing, I think, for me around nonverbal communication is we have to be aware of what we're saying with how we're acting. If we walk to a room and stomp our feet and throw things around and go, I'm so happy,
right,
but we're throwing dishes at the wall, that's incongruent. And if we don't acknowledge that incongruence, then the communication is all off. There's people are not understanding one another at all.
right. So you were about to talk about how we improve communication. Is that what you started to say?
No, I'm not sure, but we still have a few other areas we could hit on and then go there. Written communication. Is it any easier to write things?
I think sure. I think it's sometimes it's easier to write things, but I think that lends itself to the same challenge, because then someone interprets what's on the paper and doesn't hear you, see you.
Right. Whether or not they hear it, quote, in your voice, or whether they hear it in someone else's voice that they've heard before, kind of thing. Don't hear the inflection. We don't hear the tone. There are times when people are like, yeah, I'm just going to text them that. You're like, no, that's not a good idea, because that could be very misinterpreted. And when we mean misinterpreted, what we mean is that somebody else will understand it differently than what you meant.
Yes. And I was thinking about this morning because I had a situation, Gil knows that, where I asked a friend to help me with something, and they wrote me back. They texted me back this morning. I texted them. They texted me back and said that they had sent me a whole thing in October of research that they did for me and blah, blah, blah. And that, they hadn't heard from me. Well, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I went back through my emails. I didn't find it. I didn't get it. And I was thinking, why wouldn't you call or text again or something? But then I was thinking, then I responded going, OMG, I'm so sorry. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And I thought, why didn't I call? Why didn't I pick up the phone and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And why aren't we having a conversation? So I say that to say, like, text is a whole new level of miscommunication and communication.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I put this emoji with this, not the smiley face, but the half smiley face, like all of this now means something else, or if you put the poop emoji, what does it mean? What is it?
Are we supposed to laugh, or are you telling us we're full of shit?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, how do we, it's not writing like in the olden days where you write a note and apology letter.
Well, and they're still writing, etc. And as you were telling the story, what I thought of was, why didn't you call / whatever before and say, hey, I haven't heard from you. What's up? About that stuff, right?
Right.
I mean, and we could go into myriad of reasons why everybody does that, whether it's because they got busy and forgot, or and the person sending it just thought, well, whatever, I guess they got what they needed, and they went on with their life, and that's normal. That's how we function, to some degree.
But is it? I mean, that's the thing. Like, are we fully there that that's how we function? Because I could see, here we go. I could hear in her text that
she was a little
upset.
A little upset.
You didn't respond to me. Well, yeah, I couldn't. I didn't know, but I mean, so we still have expectations. I mean, I'm as guilty as the next guy to go to text somebody and go, oh, this is just easier than calling. We don't have to have a long conversation, or we don't have to whatever. but like how, when and how does that serve us, and when doesn't it serve us is more important.
Right. Right. And obviously written communication has many forms. I mean, yes, there's text form, there's actual letter type form, there's email form, there's story form, there's all kinds of ways that we write to one another. We create articles and we put out things like that. So there's a lot of ways to communicate written. And all of it is open to a certain level of interpretation by whoever is reading it. You know, I mean, the joke is, as a minister, the joke is that when you speak on at a worship service, or you give a message, that, you know, there's the message you wrote, there's the message you gave, and then there's the 40 million other messages that everybody heard, which may or may not include what you thought you said or what you did say. Right. And that's, you know, that's not unique to that setting.
It's not unique to communication.
Right.
I mean, having taught kids and worked with other people, the number of times when someone would come to me and say, I remember when you said blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, I didn't say that. I've never said that. Like in some specific story, you know, like where they got a whole different kind of ending than my story. And I just go, huh, okay, great. You know, whatever. They got the gist of whatever. But I mean, I think we do that more often than not.
Well, I think I think that brings up an interesting point is when, you know, we're in this listening section of communication, we are receiving what we need sometimes, whether or not it's what the other person is offering.
Right.
There's something in it that we need to see. And I think as I say that, that's even true when we go, ugh, she's criticizing me again, whatever. Partly I need to hear that because I need to go, is that true? I need to analyze myself and utilize that to deal with my own way that I hear the world, you know, is to be able to receive it and hear whatever I hear and
Right.
go, is that the truth of what's being said?
Yeah.
Or what's being attempted to be communicated?
Yeah. I mean, yes, because certainly there's many times when somebody says something and something else clicks, right, in your head, and you get a different version.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we had that experience working with somebody not too long ago where we had a whole discussion and we thought everything was on one page, and by 24 hours later, the person was very upset with us and it was a whole different thing. And I'm just saying that to say
Right.
that somehow what we thought had been said and what they thought had been said seemed to be two very different things.
Yeah.
Right. And clearly at some level they were exactly the same thing, but very much interpreted differently, you know. I mean, because technically speaking, whatever was said was said.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that, so in this communication is key thing. It's super important to listen, and I would say to listen in two ways.
Okay.
Right? That we're listening to the person and what they're saying, and we're listening to what they're not saying.
Mm-hmm.
And where they're saying it from.
And I would say the third thing is we're listening to what we're hearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're listening to the things that we realize are us laying it over the top. But yeah, I like your point about we're listening to what they're not saying, because we haven't really said that. And that's really important too, because often I think part of why we think we've said something is because we've said it in some way without saying it. We've said it with some emphasis. We've said it with some body gesture, you know, like whatever. We've done something that is there. And so we think we've said it. The other piece is sometimes people don't even realize what they're trying to say, but the energy is what we're feeling. We're feeling the energy of what's being communicated. And that may be very different than what's verbally happening.
Right. Peter F. Druck says the most important thing in communication is to hear what isn't being said.
What isn't being said.
Which I think goes along with what we're saying.
And it goes along with the TV show and The Diplomat. They tell all this stuff, putting out messages without saying many things, assuming that the other people will get it because it wasn't said. You know what I mean? I mean, it gets very complicated, but I'm just saying it happens in all kinds of ways, very intentional and very unintentional, I think.
Yeah, and just to break it down a little bit more to a more basic kind of communication and relationship, I think it's also, it's super important when you're in a relationship, whether it's romantic or not, it doesn't matter. When people say one thing and do another, or people do one thing and say another, because I know that people find that a lot in, if you have a boss at work that is touting your work all the time, but never gives you the promotion,
mm-hmm.
and that goes to someone else, then what is really being communicated? And that's when we have to go beyond just what we hear, or if you're in a romantic relationship and your partner is professing their love and then never doing things.
Never taking out the trash. My gosh, how do they do that?
No, not that. I don't.
But at some level, I mean that.
But not doing things that are important to you and that you've,
I mean. That's what I mean.
In a relationship. Well, I don't care if you take out the trash.
You don't care. It was an example.
Okay. Anyway.
That's why we have the kid.
Anyway, but you know what I mean. But so then we have to take that. We have to learn how to decipher that communication and what to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's like it's like covert conversation, right?
Well, I think your example with the boss kind of thing was interesting because that is that thing of what's not being said. What's not being said is, I'm not that happy with you, but I will BS you and I will whatever. But what's not being said is, I got issues with you and whatever. And it may be I don't want to deal with issue. Them.
It may just be you are great at what you do and you're not as great as other people here or whatever. Or like so let's take that situation. So being a good communicator, then or wanting good communication, what would one do? So if I realized that was me with the boss, this is the courageous part on some level. You have to be willing to speak your truth. So I might go to the boss and say, thank you so much for all that you've said and, the support you've given me. And why is it that you passed me over for promotion the last 3 times?
Right.
Or
right.
In a relationship, I might say, okay, let's look here. You tell me you love me. You tell me blah, blah, blah. And you never show up when you say you will. We don't do this. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever the evidence is, right? But it's really confronting that and being able to, or the boss being able to say, I want to have a conversation with you because you're doing really good work. And here's how you step it up to blah, blah, blah. But that's a level of communication that that I think everyone strives for on some level, because that also goes into the stuff we always talk about. And, I go back to the 4 agreements, not taking things personally, because generally we would stop at, or I'll speak for myself, I would stop at but they said I was really good, and then I didn't get the promotion. You know?
Well, I think something even in what you said about how you would go back to them is part of communication is to really explore and be curious. So, we walk in and say, you didn't promote me, or we say to our spouse, you don't do this. And so it's like, why does it, I'm just wondering, it seems like the last few promotions have happened, and what is it that I'm missing? What could I do differently?
Right.
Or why would you want, whatever. But I mean, getting curious and asking the questions and not assuming what we know. And I totally would be guilty of that. But I'm just saying, I think that's a good thing to be aware of. And our communication is when we go back to someone in a conversation like that, we don't want to put them on the defensive.
Well,
right?
Not only we don't want to put them on the defensive, we also we live in a society where it's not really okay not to know. We think we have to know everything. So we don't want to act like we don't know, even when we don't know.
Right.
And so it's really, this is courageous work to start breaking that down and really live from that place of not taking things personally and getting curious. I mean, getting curious is super important. Being able to ask questions and be willing to shift and to change things, and to see the signs when things just aren't going to work or they aren't going to happen. You may realize with your boss, okay, this job is never going to promote me. We're never going to get to that place.
Right.
Or this isn't the relationship for me because we can't find that common ground.
Or we may realize that the values are different and I'm doing what I think needs to be done and they're promoting their nephew. I mean, because that's a more important connection than the fact that you're doing your job. I mean, so those kinds of things, I'm not, I'm just saying, those kinds of things where the other person is doing something based on a completely different set of rules, if you will, a whole different set of values.
Well, and that's part of the thing is not getting stuck in the drama of it, so to speak, and staying on target for what you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
And not, if it's your passion to take it up, by all means, and fight for why did the man get the job instead of the woman, or why did this happen this way and not that way, that's great. But if it's just your mission to figure out why you're there and why you're still there or where you're supposed to be, being able to stay on that clear path and keep moving and let go of any personal thing to it and just go, okay, moving to what's next is a big deal.
Yeah. Do we make it a fairness issue or this issue or that issue, or do we go, not really we're not gonna see eye to eye, so I'm gonna keep my eye out for another place where maybe I fit in better.
So that takes us to not only communication with everybody else, but communication with ourselves. So those are a whole nother topic of getting clear with ourselves on what our mission and our rules are. And we're out of time. So maybe we'll continue this. Maybe we won't. Hopefully we haven't confused you all too much. But there's the communication is key. So if there's a nugget in here that can help you clear up your communication and communicate more effectively or hear somebody more effectively, then we hope you found it here today. And I'm going to leave you with another quote, which is, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak.
I think that was my 2nd grade teacher, if I remember right.
So to be sure and listen to even the silence, because there's always a message there. And our message is loud and clear. Rock the love, everybody. We need it. We couldn't do it without you, and we're rocking the love on this planet. And by gosh, we're going to thrive. That's my commitment.
Not only that, we are thriving. So there. Bless you all. Keep rocking it.
Take that. Rock the love. We'll see you next week. Bye.